The Mystery of the Dancing Plague, 1518. In the summer of 1518, the city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, was struck by one of history's strangest and most unsettling events. It wasn't war, famine, or disease that terrified the townspeople. Instead, it was dancing. Yes, you read that right. For weeks, dozens of people, and eventually hundreds, were overtaken by a bizarre, uncontrollable compulsion to dance in the streets, sometimes until they collapsed, and in some cases, until they died. This strange outbreak has since been called the Dancing Plague of 1518, and centuries later, it remains one of history's greatest medical and cultural mysteries, how it all began. The bizarre tale began in July 1518, when a woman named Frau Trophea walked out into the street and began to dance. At first, neighbors assumed she was simply caught up in joy, or maybe mocking some festival spirit. But what made it strange was that she didn't stop. She danced for hours, without music, seemingly against her own will. By the next day, she was still moving, twitching, and spinning. Within a week, dozens of others had joined her, men, women, and even children, unable to resist this bizarre compulsion to move. Eyewitnesses described scenes of pure chaos, streets filled with exhausted, trembling dancers who tried to stop but couldn't. When dancing turned deadly, what started with one woman soon turned into an epidemic. Within a month, as many as 400 people were infected. They danced through day and night, collapsing from exhaustion, breaking bones, and in some tragic cases, dancing themselves to death from heart failure, strokes, or sheer fatigue. The authorities were horrified. Doctors were called in, but they were as baffled as everyone else. This wasn't a fever, a plague, or any disease they recognized. Their advice? Strangely enough, they thought the best cure was more dancing. Believing the victims had overheated blood that needed to be released, officials actually built stages and even hired musicians to encourage the dancers. Instead of calming the madness, this only made it worse, fueling the frenzy until it nearly consumed the entire city. Possible explanations for centuries, historians, scientists, and psychologists have debated what really happened in Strasbourg in 1518. Several theories have been put forward. Mass hysteria, psychogenic illness. The most widely accepted theory is that the dancing plague was a case of mass psychogenic illness. Essentially, mass hysteria triggered by extreme stress. The early 1500s were a time of famine, disease, and poverty across Europe. Religious fear also loomed large, with constant threats of sin and punishment. In such a climate, it's believed that anxiety and trauma manifested physically in the form of uncontrolled dancing. Ergot poisoning, hallucinogenic mold. Another theory suggests the dancers had eaten bread made from rye contaminated with ergot fungus. This mold produces chemicals similar to LSD, which can cause hallucinations, spasms, and strange behavior. While this explanation is tempting, critics argue that ergot poisoning usually causes convulsions and gangrene, not coordinated dancing for weeks on end. Religious ecstasy or curse at the time, many believed the dancers were victims of divine punishment. Some said it was the curse of Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dancers and entertainers. People thought they were being forced to dance as penance. In fact, some dancers were eventually taken to a shrine of Saint Vitus in hopes that prayers and rituals would break the spell. Social and cultural pressure. Historians suggest that the dancing was less about disease and more about cultural expression. In a deeply religious and ritual-driven society, people may have been swept up in a contagious act of performance, unable to break free because the entire community fed into it. Why this story still fascinates us, the Dancing Plague of 1518, is more than a bizarre historical anecdote. It touches on something deeper about the human condition. It shows how stress, fear, and belief systems can shape human behavior in powerful and sometimes terrifying ways. Think about it. Hundreds of people moved not because they wanted to, but because their minds and bodies betrayed them. It's a reminder of how fragile the line is between individual choice and collective influence. It's also a cautionary tale about how societies respond to crisis. The Strasbourg authorities, convinced they were helping, actually made the situation worse by providing musicians and encouraging the very behavior they were trying to stop. Instead of calming the madness, they amplified it. Legacy of the dancing plague. After weeks of chaos, the dancing eventually faded, though reports of smaller outbreaks of dancing mania appeared elsewhere in medieval Europe. Today, historians still argue about what really happened, but the dancing plague lives on in books, documentaries, and even pop culture. From a modern perspective, the story highlights the impact of collective psychology on society, the role of belief systems and fear in shaping physical behavior, how even the strangest myths often have roots in real human suffering. Final thoughts: the year 1518 gave us one of the most mysterious plagues in history, a tragedy both eerie and oddly surreal. Was it mass hysteria, poison bread, or a curse from the heavens? We may never know for certain. But what's clear is that the people of Strasbourg weren't just characters in a bizarre folktale. They were real human beings, trapped in one of history's most haunting mysteries. So the next time you hear a story that sounds too strange to be true, remember the summer of 1518, when hundreds of people danced not for joy, but for their lives. What do you think caused the dancing plague? Mass hysteria, poison bread, or something else entirely? Comment below, share this wild story with friends, and follow for more unbelievable history mysteries.